What is the creepiest thing that's happened to you personally that made you question reality? I'm curious if anyone else has had this happen. Years ago, my then wife and I would run into the same woman everywhere we went. And I mean everywhere we went. This went on for about a year. Go to the grocery store, she would be there shopping. Starbucks, yep, sitting right behind us. Walking around the mall, she would pass us walking in the other direction. Movie theater, she'd be behind us in line getting popcorn. The creepiest encounter was while driving on the freeway. My wife looked at the car next to us and screamed. Yep, it was her. She was always alone, never talked to us, and always made eye contact. She had a very unique appearance. She was very tall, very thin, and had very tight skin on her face. It was so unusual that we joked that we were being studied by an alien. It was some serious glitch in the Matrix stuff. It was years ago, when I was about 17. I had gotten home from school and wasn't feeling well, so I spent the rest of the day just laying on the couch. But by about 8 p.m. I was feeling even worse and decided I should just try to sleep whatever it is off, so I go to my room and get in bed and pass out pretty quickly. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I suddenly woke up in my pitch black bedroom and all I could think was I'm going to die right now. My body was so weak, the room was spinning and my body felt like it was on fire. I look over to the edge of my bed and sitting on the edge is my grandmother, who died just a few months ago. She pats my arm and says it's going to be okay. Just call for your dad. Try it. Call for your dad. So I start calling for him and it felt like an eternity, but he finally burst through my door and asks what's wrong. I look over and my grandmother is gone. After that, he gets me up and takes me to the ER, where I have a fever of 106F, which explains a lot. I had to get a ton of fluids and a shot in my hip, but I eventually felt okay-ish. Her being there felt so real. It was so weird. I know logically she wasn't, but it felt so real. That sort of messed with me a little. I loved her dearly and her death was very sudden. We kept her ashes in a nice urn in the house under a painting she had done herself. When I got home and passed by, I said thanks to her. I know it was the fever melting my brain and maybe some sleep paralysis, but it still made me question the afterlife and those sorts of things. She was there. Science doesn't have all the answers right now, but she was there. We don't die. About 7 years ago I was at my mom's house. I live next door, and this white car pulls into the driveway. We weren't expecting anyone, so I assumed they were lost and needed directions, and went to the door. A white woman in her 50s or 60s got out, along with a 9 or 10-year-old black girl. Surprised me because I expected the kid to stay in the car if they just needed directions. I opened the door and the woman kind of nudges the girl towards me, both with big smiles on their faces. I said hi, what can I help you with? She asked if I was Baggy Raccoon and I said yes. She told me they went to her neighbor's house looking for me, and they pointed her to our house. They just kind of stared at me expectantly, like I was supposed to know the girl and be happy to see her. When I didn't react, the woman told me they were here to see the dentist. UHH. No dentist here. Small ranch style house in a fairly rural neighborhood. No dentist here. Not anywhere near us. The woman and the girl just kept smiling. They didn't look confused. They just kept saying, "Are you sure?" Finally they left, and later I asked the neighbor who directed them to our house and she said she never told the woman my name, that the woman asked for me specifically. It's always kind of haunted me. I really feel like I was supposed to know that girl. Like, if I was a guy, this would be someone trying to introduce me to a kid I didn't know I had. I honestly started wondering if I was nuts and had given up a child for adoption. It was that strange of a feeling. My mom firmly believes the girl will come back someday to tell me what it was about, and I think about it frequently. Drives me insane to wonder what they really wanted. Maybe they're from the future and the girl had a toothache. You're supposed to be a dentist. When I was 12 or so and still living at my parents' house, I woke up in the middle of the night to pee. I got to the bathroom and heard what sounded like a party going on downstairs. Laughter, music, the sound of glasses being knocked together for a toast, the whole shebang. I thought it was weird that my parents had friends over so late and hadn't told me, but I decided to go and see who was there. Opened the door to the kitchen and the entire downstairs was completely dark and silent. Not even a TV on. I was thoroughly confused, but the strangeness of the situation didn't really register, so I never told anyone. Years and years later I mentioned this to my dad and he said he had heard them too. Turns out there used to be a small public bar in their home, which is over 150 years old. I guess some of the patrons decided to hang out for eternity. Sometimes you wanna go. My cat hated me for the first 7 years we had him. He was a feral that was tamed by my wife, and only accepted affection from her. My wife assured me that this was common for ferals. Then one day he suddenly warmed up to me, and wanted me to pet him. We've been best friends ever since. This was approximately 4 years ago, about the time that my wife's brain cancer was becoming aggressive. Even before we were aware of it. She died 2 years ago. It's like he knew it was just going to be the two of us one day. She died 2 years ago. It's like he knew it was just going to be the two of us one day. I am so sorry for both of your loss. I burnt about 10 filing cabinets full of papers for my high school friend's dad for less than minimum wage back in 2004. Literally millions of lines of words. Maybe even a million pages or close, just tossing them into a barrel burning. After a few hours, I victoriously tossed in the last folder. A little sprite of flame shoots out and a singed fortune cookie looking piece of paper floats to the ground in front of me with the words only. What burned does not return. I still don't know WTF. The probability just is astronomical. Not me but my grandfather. My grandfather had been in World War II and told us about when himself and a few other soldiers had been separated from his unit and were trying to get to Normandy. They had gone through a clearing in a wooded area but had to drop when they heard something approaching. They were on their bellies in low grass when they saw 20 or 30 German soldiers running across the clearing, clearly in a state of panic. Then they just froze in mid-step. He said they resembled statues and that some weren't even touching the ground, and that there was no noise whatsoever, even the birds had gone silent. After a few seconds came a loud noise like metal scraping on concrete and the frozen soldiers started to become blurry to the point at which they vanished without a trace. This had been reported by all of the soldiers that were present and all were called to the War Office London after their return to the UK, where they were pressed on what they saw over the period of a few days, and were taken back to the same spot in France shortly after the war had ended. Surprisingly, when they got there were other men sharing the same accommodation who reported similar occurrences in the exact same area. They were all taken to the woods and had to describe where and how the events took place. My granddad had said that the entire area was guarded heavily and that part of the ground was heavily excavated. The strangest thing of all, the other, he said, was that there were hundreds of dogs in the area, just milling around for no apparent reason. They returned to the UK with a gag order ordering them never to speak about any of this. He went back to the same spot in France before he died in 1985 and said that the area had been covered with unmarked warehouses and was guarded by an unusually professional security company. He reckoned they were military. I've tried to find out more about this but can't find any records of it, but I do remember one of the guys who he was with the day he used to come and visit sometimes and referred to the place as the Splintered Woods. This sounds so familiar. I feel like there's another post about this same thing somewhere on Reddit. Also, let the record state, zoinks. It's not even that creepy, but the first time it happened was the first time I've ever considered that anything supernatural might be real. Very occasionally at my desk at work I hear breathing in my left ear. There's a wall behind me, a window to my left, but you can't hear any outside noise. I don't feel a breeze or anything, I just hear it. It's peaceful and sad, like a sigh. My first thought was air conditioning, but it's such a clear sound that just cuts through everything as if it's coming from a whole different world to the general office noise. It's very definitely only in my left ear and I never hear it anywhere else. Every time it kicks in I very calmly just get up and leave my desk for 5 minutes, and when I come back it's gone. Pulsatile tinnitus. I can think of a few things that happened in my first year of college. I used to live in an apartment kind of place on campus, with 3 other people. We all had our separate bedrooms, but shared a living space. It was on the 7th floor. To give a better idea, once, I woke up at around 2 AM to find that my phone was automatically playing a song. I closed the app, but it happened 2-3 times again. I would have put this down to my phone being weird, but then one of my roommates told me the exact same thing happened to her as well. This wasn't all. A few days later, I woke up to a beeping sound coming from my phone, and when I checked, it was apparently a sound recording. The duration showed as 0.00 though, which meant that it shouldn't technically play at all. I deleted it immediately. Another time, my roommate and I were watching a movie and had stayed up till 3. It ended and she went to sleep. After a few minutes, she burst into my room and asked me what I was doing. I was confused because I was just lying in bed, reading. She said that she heard very weird noises from the window, which she assumed I was making to scare her or something. I went to her room and it sounded like heavy breathing, sighing. I told her it is just the wind. We opened the window and saw that the trees etc were completely still. I don't have the same phone, room or roommates anymore, even though I still stay on campus. Phones are so weird. My mom called me in the middle of the night freaking out because she had gotten a text from me that said goodbye at like 3 AM. I did not send the text. The only thing I can guess is that it was one that got caught in limbo and got sent like several days, weeks later. She thought I was in danger. Not necessarily creepy, but definitely made me question reality. I used to work in a gas station. One regular customer was like night and day. One day he'd be soft-spoken and shy, the next he'd be obnoxious. His cigarette preference also changed from day to day, but he always came in the same work truck with the same guys at the same time of day. One day, he walked in and went straight to the bathroom. A minute later, he walked in again and came to the counter. Twins. It took me 8 months to realize they were twins. And not even identical twins, either. They just looked really similar. Similar story but completely different. I got Chipotle for lunch today. When I got to check out, the same girl who started my bowl was there. I made some crack about how fast she was to beat me there, and she looked confused. I commented on how she started my food, and now was finishing it. She laughed and pointed at her sister at the beginning of the line. I'm the type of person who keeps my bedroom door closed and locked all the time, no matter what, even if I'm home alone. So like a year ago, it was 1 AM and I had decided to get a glass of water before going to bed. After coming back in my room, I swore that I closed and locked my door. After about 30 minutes of me dozing in and out of sleep, I suddenly felt all the ambient noise completely dissipate and immediately got that something feels off feeling. I got up and saw that my door was wide open. It scared the crap out of me as I was home alone. I've just chalked it up to being a one-time mishap on my part. Almost got kidnapped. Maybe. I hailed a lift because I was too drunk to drive. Car pulled up. I got in and was like, take me to 123 Home Street. Phone rings. I answer and here, I'm your Lyft driver. I just watched you get into a car and that is not your Lyft. You need to get out right now. Neat. Hey bud, I'm getting a friend to pick me up, thanks anyway. Hopped out at the red light we were stopped at. The driver and I talked about how one of the reasons we didn't have Lyft in my city for a while was because girls were getting kidnapped and forced into flesh trade. So now since these guys can't use rideshare apps, they're preying on drunk girls that they see on the street, hailing a ride and just pick them up. Thankfully I got into the front seat because the back might have had a child lock on. Asked the driver to make sure I got into my house before driving away since old creeper had my address. Went to pick up my car the next day and not only did I not get flash trafficked, I didn't get a parking ticket either, so that was cool. Definitely a lot more cautious now. It's really weird thinking that might have been a life-destroying event. I had 2 bananas, connected at the stem part. Broke them into 2, ate one, threw out the peel. Came back for the other one and it's gone. I live alone. Either I have a rotting banana somewhere in my app or I've gone crazy. Update. It's been weeks. Haven't seen smelled the other banana. I'll accept that I just went bananas for that moment. Check your loft for monkeys. I was camping with my family on summer break when I was a kid. The first night we heard some rustling off in the distance, so my dad went to go check it out. He came back and said he found an old dirty sleeping bag with a bunch of trash around it. I took this as him implying that it could have been a camp that got ransacked by a curious bear. We'd hear movement in the tree line for the next couple nights, and it scared the crap out of me. The last night we were there, I had a nightmare that a bear had made it into my tent and was licking and biting my feet. I woke up from the dream and shined my watch light into the dirt-covered wrinkly face of an elderly man. He was sucking on my toes, and he immediately exited my tent and took off right after we made eye contact. I still don't know if it was my imagination or not all these years later. I never told anyone, and I have nightmares about it often. Jesus wept. That's freaking terrifying either way. I have 2 wireless mouses, one for a work laptop and one for my personal laptop. When I let things get messy, I usually just stack one laptop on top of the closed one underneath, with both mouses near the mouse pad. Okay, so I get a call from work saying I need to hop online. I open the work laptop and grab the mouse and start opening my work portal. I open email. I do my usual routine. Everything works fine. Then, I realize that I'm using the mouse connected to my personal laptop on my work laptop. I shake the mouse. No response. It stopped working once I realized that it shouldn't be working. Ever since then, I've found it hard to believe that we don't live in some sort of a simulation. When I was a kid between 8 or 9, I used to wake up every night to headlights coming through my bedroom window. The lights would stop and turn off, not as if a car drove by but as if they were turned off. Then the long shadows of a man, as if were looking through my window, would pass by and stop in front of my window. I would lay really still and pretend nothing happened, every night for months. Eventually I convinced myself it was imagination. Now that I think back, it stopped when my stepdad moved in. My mom was single, but I was convinced it wasn't real. Across the street lived my best friend whose mom was also single and she refused to sleep in her bedroom. Her window faced my window. She told me years later it was because every night a man would park in her side yard and walk over to my yard. The long shadows were from the light in her yard. She eventually decided it was my dad checking on us and never told me until I was a teenager. It wasn't my dad. I asked him. So I thought I was crazy and hallucinating for years, and perhaps I wasn't, or 2 kids were having odd dreams at the same time every night. I was playing with our dog in the living room. At the time I was around 9 years old. We were doing our usual only play like this when mom isn't home else she'll tell us to stop type of playing. So basically playing fetch in the living room. At one point I threw the toy which caused it to ricochet out of the living room into the kitchen. Franz, our dog's name, chased it and disappeared around the corner to get it. At that exact moment the front door opened and mom walked in with Franz on a leash after a 2-hour walk over the beach and dunes. I tried to explain, but can't. I played with him for at least 15 minutes in. Apparently, my imagination. But I just don't believe that. When he's such a good boy he learns how to astral project to play with you while he's away. When I was 15 I was home alone hanging out upstairs in my bedroom. At the time we had 2 small dogs. I was sitting in my room watching TV when the dogs started going crazy barking downstairs. It wasn't uncommon for them to bark when a person walked by or came to the door, so I just stayed in my room and thought nothing of it at first. They kept barking, non-stop, for probably about 10 minutes before I finally got fed up and decided to go downstairs to tell them to stop it. The stairs in my house led into the kitchen. As soon as I reached the bottom I saw him. A very tall man in a pea jacket and top hat stood in the doorway between my kitchen and dining room. I could see no face. I bolted back upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom where I called my parents. In the time I was waiting for them to come home I began hearing several seemingly aggravated male voices outside the bathroom door. I was absolutely terrified. Eventually my aunt arrived at my house to check on me. The voices faded and I was able to calm down. About 2 years ago I got a phone call from my mother telling me she had been reading the local, very small town paper and there was an article in it about my childhood home, written by the town historian. The house, built in 1805, had once been a local gathering spot for the elite of the small village. The first floor, now the kitchen, dining room and living room, had once been a parlor and tavern of sorts, while the second floor of the house functioned as a dance hall. Things in the house had been rearranged a bit. The staircase, being one of those things, had been moved from what was now a second floor bedroom closet, which would exit downstairs between the kitchen and dining room. My family was slightly aware of this but never had the exact details of it. Very cool, I thought, until my mom continued reading. In 1836 there was an accident. 3 men got into an argument about their differing political views, 2 of them against the other. The disagreement ended with the 3rd man being pushed over the railing at the top of the stairs, landing at the base of the stairs, where he slowly suffered from, and eventually succumbed to his injuries. The spot where he died was the exact spot I had seen the faceless man in the top hat almost 15 years ago. My mom clipped the news article and my father framed it and hung it in the dining room, right near the doorway into the kitchen. An hour later, while my father was home alone, he heard a crash. Upon investigation he found the clipped article in its shattered frame, laying face down, 15 feet from where he had hung it. I always knew what I had seen and heard was supernatural. Now you'll never convince me otherwise. You'll also never convince me to stay in that house alone again. Found the paper for exact year. That could be classified as a residual haunting. See also, stone tape. I worked at a small retail shop that sold mostly small accessories and clothes. I have never really believed in ghosts, but my co-workers always swore the place was haunted. Lights would flicker randomly and canvases would fall violently to the ground despite my efforts of propping them up so that they didn't. The thing that really made me question everything happened when I was closing alone at night. We had a sunglass display in the middle of the store. Just a flat glass shelf with a bunch of sunglasses laid out nicely on top. I walk past it to the register and hear this huge crash. Look back and all of the sunglasses were on the floor. It looked like somebody just took their arm and dragged it across the shelf, pushing them all off. There wasn't anything above the display, so nothing could have knocked it off. I don't have an explanation for it. It was right as I was about to close to. He was a rude ghost. It didn't want to be left alone, so it made a mess to make you stay longer. I dreamed it was dark, raining, and I was in the woods walking towards a campfire. There were 3 men around it whom I had never seen before. One was wearing a shirt and pants with huge white and black horizontal stripes on it, such as a prisoner might wear. I could not figure out why I was not scared in my dream. Fast forward 10 months later, we're hunting and camping. A friend brings along 3 of his friends that we had never met before. I have to go to the bathroom, buried a 50-gallon drum and put a seat on it, and my husband walks with me since it's dark. We start back and it starts to rain. We get to the clearing and there are his 3 friends around the fire, one wearing the outfit described above. I wasn't afraid in my dream because my husband was behind me and I just couldn't see him. No one believes me. This happens to me all the time, where I have dreams of a random situation and then it actually happens. No one ever believes me either. It's annoying. I was young, around 9, and my brother was 4. We were in our living room. He was in the middle of the room, and suddenly a fork that was on my couch just flew to him and landed in front of his feet. He laughed and I pretty much pretended it never happened. Little telekinetic bro telling you to fork off. I had a terrible dream when I was 10 and I called my mom to come lay with me and we passed out, I guess. I woke up staring at the back of head. Her hair looked exactly like Michael Myers. I said mom, she turned around and it was her, but holy crap, I'll never forget. Groovy baby. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.